Hello, welcome to this episode of the I Am Jen Wilson, the Healing Rebel podcast. I am delighted today to have Lisa Hopper, who is the author of a book, Truly You, an invitation to become become more of your true self. Sorry, totally. I had scrolled that down and I was trying to read it in amongst other words, so I do apologise for not
It's
quite
a
nailing.
it's a long book title, Jen, so don't worry.
Author of Truly You. I got that bit right. I'm delighted to have you here. We've only recently met through the Glasgow Girls Club, which a lot of my guests who come on, we have that connection. It's lovely to have you here. So why don't you do a less butchered introduction to yourself?
Thank you. Well, I can't promise it's going to be less butchered. Let's see what comes out of my mouth. Yeah, and my name is Lisa Hopper. I'm a coach, I'm a life coach, a leadership coach. I actually never really know um, how to put myself into a box or into one sentence, because I feel like the depth of the work that I've done is so expansive now that it feels like I'm shortchanging when we try and put it into a job title. Um, so yeah, I set up my business about 8 years ago. I have a very varied background, and I think one of the things that I would want to share about myself is this kind of reinvention that I've done at all different stages of my life. And so this is the last reinvention, tuning into, what wants to come through me, what wants to be out there in the world that I'm just a vessel for. And so my coaching business was born like 8 years ago. And then the book came out, which I also just called Truly You because it's much more succinct and easier. That came out at the start of this year, January, the end of January. Um, and the work that I do these days is all around, the principles that are contained in the book and that kind of curiosity around who are we really? There is a bit of a spiritual nature to it, but there's also a massively practical element. So who are we really? What do we want to stand for? What do we want to create? How do we want to make the most of our time here? Um, yeah, that's what I feel pulled to share as an introduction this time.
So I have started reading your book. I got to the end of the lesson, so I'm just at the start now, or I'm just about to go into the third section of your book. So I've just been through the 13 lessons, so we'll get to that because there's a couple of them that I'm like, yes, these really, 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 really spoke to me, and I have very tangible experiences with them. So we will get to that. What brought you to the coaching world? Like you came from another life to this. So what brought you to that?
Yeah. Um, I mean, there's probably a really long answer to this if I was to trace the whole way back. But the short answer is I was working in human resources and I had this love for developing people. And I would get really frustrated that it wasn't top of the list in terms of, the people metrics, the KPIs. I would be in the room with the directors and the conversation would move back towards finance or back towards something else. And it always felt like the people agenda was being bumped down the list until there was a bit more time and space for it. Um, and so I was feeling an internal frustration, and I knew in my body knew before my mind knew that there was a disconnect between what I was doing and what I was meant to be doing. And so it felt like, I'm sure I'm in the right ballpark. I'm sure it's something here, it's something like this, but this isn't it. This is not it. Um, and I was having a hard time actually with one of my client groups. I was finding them really tricky. There was a director who was a very difficult character, and I was having a lot of challenges in managing his personality. And we'd had some changes as well in our HR structure. And so there was a different head of HR, and there was just this, Jen, when you feel like at some point something's going to wake me up if I don't decide to wake up for myself.
Yeah.
So I feel like all of these pieces of the puzzle were happening for me, even though at the time it felt really challenging. And I felt like I was close to burnout. I was going home in tears. So a lot of that was happening. And then I was having I used to do a supper club with my friends down in London. So my flatmates, there was three of us that used to flat share together. And every Monday we would have a supper club and we would watch escapism TV and we would cook for each other. And so this one Monday we were watching this reality TV program, and there was a life coach on there who was coaching somebody on their relationships. And my flatmate turned to me and she said, Lisa, you'd be brilliant at that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think you might be onto something. So that was it. I locked him up and he was he was like 30 grand for the year. And I was like, there's no way this guy is going to want to work with me. But I don't care. I'm messaging him anyway, because I was just so fascinated by it. So I remember sending him an email and he replied almost instantly. And then the next thing I know, I had this consultation booked in his calendar. And cheeky me was thinking, I'm just going to go and see what happens. It's a free consultation. I don't need to do anything with it. But in those 2 hours, something moved inside of me that there was like, there's a possibility that this could also be my life. And I just really started to feel into that vision of you could have your own business and you could be doing this people development stuff for real. He was earning 500K a year. There was no, it was like suddenly the ceiling of what was possible. That doorway was being opened up for me and I was being invited into it. And so I'm not going to say it was like an easy yes. It was an easy yes in terms of I know I want to try this, but there were still barriers around this is a big investment. Is this going to work? This would mean, I'm going to be giving up my job, even though I'm not enjoying it. It's still a regular income. So there was a lot of that kind of transition that I had to go through. But ultimately, it was one moment where all the stars aligned and my flatmate said something to me and I was open enough to hear it and then courageous enough to follow the whisper.
So I've got a couple of questions here. First one was, you said that your body knew before your mind did. What did that look like? And the other question is, you went onto that discovery call thinking, this doesn't need to go to anything. Now, I'm the type of person that goes, I'm not going on to that discovery call because I know I'm going to sign up for something that I can't afford because I don't know how to say no. So then I just avoid discovery calls. So where does that mindset come from?
Well, I don't think our mindsets are too dissimilar, actually, because I don't think I was feeling like the abundance of being able to say no. I feel like it was more, I don't see that yes would be an option. And I'm gonna like hustle my way to figure out how to get something here. So I don't have the money to invest in this, but I really want to know what happens behind closed doors. So I think we were still in that, we were still in the fear-based approach. I definitely wasn't going, oh, I'm so free within myself to ask for anything and say no to anything. I wasn't at that stage then at all. I would love to say I was. I feel a lot freer around that now. But back then it was more, how cheeky is my belief system going to let me be? Because I really don't want to be doing what I'm doing anymore. And I've got to dig my tunnel out of here somehow. So I'm willing to do, I'm willing to do certain things. And then what was just remind me of what
was, you said that your body knew before your mind that you were in the wrong place. What did that look like? What did that feel like?
I feel like this is a common thread in my life. There is a sensation that happens in my body and it can show up anywhere. So sometimes it's like a constriction in the throat. Sometimes it's a knot in the stomach. My body has different ways of telling me to pay attention. But in this scenario, I woke up one day and I was just on autopilot. Get ready, get out the door, walk down the street, head to work. And my body just stopped and turned me around. And before I knew it, I was back inside my flat and I wasn't going into work that day. And it was just saying, just stop, because I wasn't thinking clearly. There was so much happening. There was so much pressure I had multiple different client groups. And back then I felt like none of my client groups are talking to each other. So they don't know how much I'm doing for each of them. And I was in a position where I'd lost myself a little and I wasn't able to articulate, well, you can have this, but I'm also doing this, this, and this. So you guys need to speak and figure out what's the most important. It was just, what you were just saying about yes to everything.
Yeah.
And so in a way, that's me kind of saying now, I take responsibility as well for allowing that to occur, but not through shame or judgment, just through an observation of like, this was the system that was at play that resulted in that feeling, and my body had my back, essentially, of it just walked me back home. And
Yeah.
then I was in the apartment and I was like, okay, I need to call my boss and just tell her, and I can't do this anymore. Something
Yeah.
needs to change. So that's one example. But I still feel like my body wakes me up all the time. Right now, I would say there's a feeling of, when I was writing the book, there was an instruction, or there was guidance from other people, like my mentors around me, saying, write the book that's for coaches to help them grow their business, because I have a school that helps coaches grow their business organically. And so that makes complete sense logically. But there again, it was like when I went to write it, there was just this feeling of like, this isn't the book. This is not what's meant to be coming out of you. And so I feel like I just surrender and just listen. And sometimes I plow on, and then something else has to happen to kind of wake me up. But as best I can now, there's a growing in awareness, and then there's a surrendering, and there's a listening to what is it that wants to be heard here. And when you identify it in your body and you ask, like, what is it that you want for me in the positive? And then you start to listen to the answer. It's a really good way of taking the complaint. So if you'd have asked me, what's wrong, when I was walking into work that day, I would have been able to verbally complain
Yes.
at everything that was wrong, but I wouldn't have necessarily been able to articulate my ask.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the thing about listening to the body and then asking it, what is it that you want for me in the positive?
Mm-hmm. Which I think that the body is so intelligent, and we override it. Like from as soon as you go into like nursery or primary school, you're taught to sit down, be quiet, do as you're told. You
Mm-hmm.
might need too bad, you need to wait until break time. You're hungry just now, too bad, you need to wait in break time. So you're conditioned from a very young age to not listen to your body's needs, not listen to your body's responses. And the body is always giving us these signals. Like, I'm feeling a bit tired today, so I'll drink a coffee instead of having a lie down, because you're trying to push through to meet other people's expectations. And we do that so instinctively, because that's how so many of us have been conditioned. So to be able to unlearn that and go, no, actually, this is what I need, this is what my body needs, so that I'm looking after myself. But then you're taking it on that even deeper level by asking your body, what is it?
Yes, because I do think that the interpretation of what the body is trying to say is where things get a bit funky. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, we might be triggered by tons of stuff out there in the world, right? So our partner says something or does something, or someone at the shop upsets us. There's like all day long, there's opportunity to be upset by things. And the body tells us that, right? Because we feel the anger or the rage or the embarrassment or the frustration. So it comes in a feeling that we often then automatically respond to. And what we tend to do is we respond from the feeling without actually asking the feeling, like, what is it that you want from me in the positive? So it decides in a heightened state that now is the best time to actually bring up all the 17 other issues that we have with our partner in that exact moment when we're really angry with them, right? So we're following the feeling, but we're not actually understanding what the feeling is trying to guide us towards. We're just on autopilot and we're reacting. So I think feelings, they're not always telling us what we think they're telling us, and we blindly go into reacting to them, and then
Yeah.
we find evidence to justify the reaction, and then we embed the feeling even more. So I do think that there is a whole thing around learning to interpret the feelings, because I could like, if I think about the former client group and the director that I was talking about, I had a lot of intense feelings around that, and I could easily react you know, back then I hadn't really got this education that I have now through my coaching work, but I would easily react and I would put all of the blame on him. This is
Yeah.
how he's behaving. This is what he's saying. This is inappropriate. This is not okay. And so all of my feeling was because of him. And in that scenario, then I'm powerless almost. It's like there's no agency within me to create anything other than that experience. And so when I started to understand how to look at the judgments I had on him being a reflection of the judgments that I would have on myself, and when I started to take ownership back in that way, then I had something that I could work with, which I found was incredibly liberating. So
Yeah.
some people, when they start to flip it, you know, there's no one to blame now. There's no circumstance to blame or anyone else to blame. And they start to look at themselves. What they can do is they blame themselves. And that's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying here is flip it so that you can look with compassion and love at the system that's in play, not you as a human being. These are just behaviors that's all come from our conditioning. It's all come from our learned behaviors. So we want to hold up, or we want to suspend the system so that we can start to have a look at it.
Yeah.
And that I think that is where our freedom and our power and our agency lies. But we're
Yeah.
not taught this stuff, Jen. You'll know that. We're just not taught this at all.
Definitely not. We're definitely not taught this, because I noticed in your book that you've done NLP training and amongst many other trainings. What would you, and I know because we've had a chat before recording, you've done the Byron Katie's the work training, and did you go and do like a yoga teacher or somatic training
I've
somewhere?
not done no, I haven't done yoga. I have done Reiki. I'm not practiced in it. That was something because I was going through quite a turbulent time, and because I am a bit of a tart when it comes to like programs and trainings, I'm so hungry to learn everything. So I couldn't just go and have Reiki. I was like, no, I need to do the practitioner course and fully immerse myself in it. So I have done that, but yeah. But no, I've done for the last 8 years, I would say I've never stopped learning,
Yeah.
immersing myself in things. NLP was right back at the beginning of the journey, and I must still use some of the things that I learned in there, because somebody asked me the other day, when did you do NLP? And I hadn't told them. And they were like, "It's something that you said." And I was like,
Yeah.
oh.
So of all the trainings that you have done, what would you say is the most impactful so far?
Good question. I think it is a really good question, because they all serve in their own way. I think there's a theme throughout them as well, though, of knowing that you're not your thought. So I have the thought about the director. I think it's me. I literally have attached my identity to being right about his behavior now. So
Yeah.
if somebody questions that, there's a part of me that has to die. So I'm going to fight for my position. And so really learning to understand, wow, I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts.
Yeah.
Have ideas, but I'm not my ideas. My worthiness, my value is not dependent on any of this. I have feelings, but I am not my feelings. So I think someone saying to me, Lisa, you know, you don't have to trust your thinking. And they weren't doing it in a way of like, you should doubt yourself, right? Of like, I'm not wanting to enhance self-doubt here. What I am doing is I'm doubting the doubt.
Yeah.
So if we have thinking, which we all do, which is a beautiful, brilliant gift for a human being, to have that kind of wild imagination that we can have, because that's where all our best creations come from. But if we think that that is us, then we also think that the negative chatter is us too. And it's not. So someone saying, you know, you don't have to believe your thought, that was a game changer for me. Yeah, there's been lots of incredible teachers that I've been very blessed to be around and learn from.
Yeah.
And I think as well, Jen, figuring out, you know, there is so much choice and option available for all of us now, and find the teachers who lend themselves to your style of learning. You know, I love to learn from studying people. I love to observe. And when I was in LA with Byron Katie for 9 days, I was watching her. and she was living her life. So she was doing her teaching and she was living her life, and real things were happening in those 9 days because people were going really deep into themselves. And so there was lots of different things that were happening. People were hijacking the lifts as well. There was 400 of us, and we were in this hotel in LA, and they figured out a way to like hijack the lift so that they didn't have to wait for it to stop on all these different floors. And so other guests, I think, were complaining about the lifts. And so Katie had to address that with us. Can you please stop hijacking the lifts? So there was lots of things that were happening, but I was watching her and nothing touched her. Like nothing shook her. You know, things touched her, things moved her. There was a huge connection that she had to anyone that she was working with in that room, just such a pure heart, but nothing really shook her. And so I
Yeah.
was watching how she handled criticism, how she handled feedback, how she handled all the events that were going on, how she handled the technology breaking and the judgment from people coming in around that. And what I would say is she just didn't make up that there was anything to handle.
Yeah. She
That
was living in her work.
yeah, that it's all perfect. There's
Yeah.
nothing to handle here, um,
Yeah.
which is wildly different to how most of us live our lives.
Yeah. We have our, here's our mask for how we present professionally, but behind the scenes we are chaotic.
Yeah, yeah. And we make up stuff, we make up problems that need solving all the time that don't need, they're not even problems, only what the mind's made up as a problem. And then we have resistance to that, which when I say we, I'm including myself in it. It's not something that I've, I'm like, oh no, I don't do that. It's like, no, I notice that I have an idea and then I try on like, that's not, what if I didn't make that out to be a problem? And then I hear, but it is a problem, and here's why. So you kind of have to stay with yourself and you have to be really willing to try on a different perspective that's going to bring you back to a little bit more freedom, a little bit more peace. And then from there, we have more creative ideas that come to us. So I remember early on, I would have a lot of resistance around coming back to peace being the end result. So, I'd watch people like Katie and it's like, oh, but now you're just at peace with that. But there is still something that you want to change. Like you don't want people to be hijacking the lifts all the time, right? It's like we can come back to peace. It's not a problem. It's, but actually we do want to create something here. And so the difference that I now see is there's a creation that can come from love and there's
Okay.
a creation that can come from anger.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's about coming back to a different place inside of us to take the energy out that we're about to react from.
Yeah.
And then suddenly our bandwidth is clear and we have the best ideas. Oh,
Okay.
I know how to have that conversation with my partner now.
Yeah. And
It's
it's depressing because obviously women, like I work with lots of women who have, and I include myself in this, have suppressed anger and just been like that. Oh, it's fine, don't worry about it, and let people away with stuff. And it's not about that. It's about this situation's fucking shit.
Mhm.
This, I want to deal with it, but I want to deal with it not blowing my top and
Yeah, there's,
getting
there's
responded.
it's a really good point that you're making, and again, it's like I'm always in the exploration and in the experiment of this, so it's always evolving how I see it. So let's say, I don't know, something has happened that is inappropriate, and so I can really get into my story about how inappropriate that was, and then I can create a solution from that story. Or I can look and see, and I'm going to say this and then I'm going to explain a little bit because if I was listening to myself right now, I'd already be jumping in with my resistance. So I can come back to, I can be in my story and I can create a solution. Or I can come back to what's the gift in this scenario for me. And I can try on different perspectives that are going to help free me, because this isn't about the other person. This is about freeing me from my story, from my suffering, from my pain, from my turmoil.
Yeah.
So once I start to experiment, and I don't force different perspectives, but I can start to try different perspectives on, and then I start to access a little bit more freedom, that's when I then tend to have my best solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So if something's in a, so I'll give you an example of, you know, an event that I was at, and somebody had come up to me and I felt like they were making inappropriate comments. Like I wasn't interested. I felt like they were kind of sexist comments. In the moment, it caught me off guard and I didn't know how to respond. So I just kind of laughed and shook it off and disappeared. But I
Yeah.
knew, you know, we're going to be together for more days. So I'm going to see this person again. And so I practiced that night in the hotel room. I practiced like how I wanted to respond.
Yeah.
And I was verbally, like I was saying out loud, because I think that if you're not skilled in articulating yourself, sometimes it's challenging to say what you want to say. Because, and in fact, let me say that again. It's not necessarily just to do with the skill in articulation. It's the belief system that's driving the articulation in the first place. So if you're uncomfortable saying no, it's going to be very difficult to say no from an authentic, powerful place inside of you.
Yeah.
But you might be amazing at articulating in many other ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't particularly skilled at articulating in this scenario because I felt so uncomfortable with it. And so I practiced saying it. And it was so interesting. Like once I even sounded like I was flirting. I was like, oh my God, that's the absolute opposite of what I want to be having happen here. But for some reason, it just came out all flirty. So I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. And then the next day, sure enough, this person came up and made a similar comment. And I was able to articulate back, you know, thank you and no. And so I was able to articulate myself in a way that felt really grounded because in the first instance, I was unsafe. That's what had
Yeah.
happened. I had come away from my safety. I'd gone into a story of everything, but actually I wasn't physically unsafe. And so here I just practiced that scenario, playing it out again, and I connected back to my safety and I could see, oh, I'm completely safe here.
Yeah.
I can respond differently to this. And by the
Mm-hmm.
end of the week, like we were switching numbers and they were like, gosh, if I want to hire a coach, I'm going to be coming and reaching out to you. And so we're still connected. But this was
Yeah.
someone who had triggered me big time on day one with his inappropriate comments.
Yeah.
So I just want to fly the flag for the story that we're in isn't necessarily the reality, whilst also being sensitive to what I'm not saying is it's fake that he didn't say that or he didn't do that. I'm not saying that.
Uh-huh.
Is that making sense, Jim? Because this feels like it could be. I don't want any listeners to feel charged around what I'm not saying is it's okay. I'm not saying it's okay and you can continue on with inappropriate behavior.
Yeah. It's like setting a boundary of you've crossed a line here. That's not okay for you to say that to me, but I'm not going to hold it against you for the rest of the time because that was one interaction that we've had. And when that boundary's been set and you can see that that person's respecting that boundary, then you can have a different kind of relationship off the back of it.
Yeah, and because sometimes what I think is there isn't even there.
Yeah.
I was in
Because been inappropriate, but you have heard it as and interpreted it as inappropriate, and they
exactly.
being friendly.
Yeah, exactly. So we all have these different maps of the world
Yeah.
and we're reacting from them. But
Mhm.
we don't really stop and think that actually none of us know 100% of anything.
Yeah.
We only look at the bit that we think we know, and then we zone in on that, and then we respond and react from that. But
Mhm.
you know, we don't know, we cannot physically know everything that has ever happened to a person in their life.
Yeah.
Even if they were to tell us, I've told you everything. No, they haven't, because they will have forgotten things that have happened in their life.
Yeah.
So I think that we can access a lot more understanding and a lot more compassion, and we can create a much safer kind of world if we start to recognize that my viewpoint here is wildly, wildly restricted. So I
Yeah.
can't really stand in my certainty about this because there's so much that I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a like a veil lifting way to kind of look at every experience and every interaction that you have.
Yeah. And again, it's like, I've really invited myself into this because it was so freeing for me.
Yeah.
So people around me benefit because I'm just a nicer person. I'm more understanding, I'm more compassionate, I'm less righteous. But also, I'm really free inside of me.
Yeah.
I'm not making up that all of this stuff and all of these people are doing all of this stuff to me. So I'm not in my suffering as much as I was. And that's quite a bold word. And I would never, it's actually Katie that I got that word from, suffering. I would never normally talk about as suffering, because when I think of suffering, that's not, I don't think of me. But so when I say suffering, I'm talking about you're suffering your thoughts that you're believing.
Yeah, which that's quite a Buddhist approach. Like one of their four noble truths is that everything in life is suffering. Happy things are suffering because they're going to come to an end. Sad things are suffering because they're going to come to an end. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
everything all the time, and if you get caught up in the story and make yourself the victim of every story or whatever, and I think we see so much of this on social media because it's celebrated so much.
Mm-hmm.
Look what happened to me. This person said this to me, boo-hoo, and everybody goes, "Oh, poor you."
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the belief in the world, and there's a few other people go, yeah, go you, and then everybody's celebrating it, but somebody goes, no, that's not actually true, and then they're the enemy for saying you,
Yes.
whoa, what happened there?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think ultimately we just all take ourselves a bit too seriously.
Yeah.
You know, like what if I was 5% less serious? You know, what would I be doing or saying then?
Yeah.
I think everyone
Yeah.
could benefit from that.
I'm definitely a much happier person when I'm not taking myself seriously. Like
Me too.
everything just feels so much lighter.
Yeah, because I think there's a difference between being sincere and being serious. And I used to get those two confused. So I think in the corporate world, you know, you have to be professional and serious. And actually, do you? Can't you just be really sincere? Can't you just
Yeah.
be sincere about what you're doing? You don't have to be so serious about it. So I like the word sincere. I'm a fan of that one.
The seriousness came from men being the important ones in the room, and then when women got into those rooms, they thought we have to be this kind of way as well because we're the important ones in the room. It's like, no, let's stop playing that game because it
Yeah.
doesn't work. It doesn't make anybody happy.
Yeah, exactly. And we do tend to model, you know, like if it's the guys that are in the room in these positions, then I need to become them if I want to have that position as well.
Yeah.
And there's a degree of playing the game.
Yeah.
But I think again the important piece is I'm playing the game because it's within my agency and I know I'm playing the game versus feeling like I have to in order to be accepted or welcomed or valued.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. But I do sometimes feel like women, I mean, it's been years since I was in corporate now, but I remember being in a meeting room and I remember having this conversation around like, you know, if the cameras were following you around, are you proud of who you're being and your leadership style? And I also remember seeing there was one of the females in the room was trying to speak. She was in finance and this was her repertoire. This was like her subject matter expertise. And she kept being talked over to the point where she had to actually stand up and get a whiteboard and start drawing at the front of the room to get people's attention. And so I do think there's still a lot of work to be done on unconscious biases. And that comes back to that piece around awareness. Just let's all start to be a little more aware and let's all start to take ourselves a little less seriously and let's separate our thinking from our identity because then we're more open to actually hearing and seeing who's in front of us and collaborating. We don't have the idea doesn't have to be mine. You know, what's the end goal? And it doesn't matter how we get there. But I think we're quite far away from that in some organizations anyway.
In some organisations, in some situations, like I've been speaking to a charity for a few years now about helping develop their wellness and wellbeing program, and they've brought somebody in who's like the director of this, and I'm having conversations, and I 3 years ago said, look, I've got these Pilates classes that are online. If you want to offer that as a service, it's there. I'm teaching the classes anyway. If you want to tap your people into it, not a problem. And then somehow 3 years later, we're still having this conversation. Nothing's moved forward with it. And they're like, I don't know if that's really the right thing. And I'm like, that's okay. I don't care, like, with the greatest respect, I don't care whether or not they come to this class or you set up another class with another teacher. It has to be the right thing for the end user. I'm
Mm,
not here just because I think I'm going to get a class out of it. I'm here because I'm part of the charity. I've had help from the charity myself, and I want to give something back. And it has to be the right thing for the end user. And the person I was speaking to was like, thank God you said that. I was just like, oh, like we could have moved this on so much faster if you didn't think that you were trying to find a way to accommodate me into that particular role, because it's
yeah,
not about me, it's about how can we help the greater community.
yeah, exactly. That's a brilliant example of how our beliefs like don't serve the bigger mission. So
Yeah,
we have conditioning around needing to be nice or needing to be kind or not wanting to offend or upset somebody. So we don't have the conversation that needs to be had. Because if we are in that feeling of, with all of that conditioning, it generates a certain feeling inside of us. So then when we go into the conversation to say, hey, Jen, actually, I'm not sure this is quite the right fit for the organization, it doesn't come out like that because
yeah,
we're trying to have that conversation from this very insecure place inside of us because we're believing all the insecure thinking that we're having. So that's why I always love to go upstream and start to question the insecure thinking so that you can land in a different perspective. And then you can say, hey, Jen, let's not have this drag out for another 3 years. I love you dearly. I'm a big fan of your mission and what you do. And I think in this example, for this organization, it's not quite the right fit.
yeah,
And then it's freeing. And then it's like, you know what you're up to. You're free to go off and find the people who are wildly aligned with what you do. And they're free to bring in whoever it is that, whatever it is that they want to be doing to serve their organization. So
yeah,
I think if we can start to see, like, how is my behavior here slowing the boat down and not making it go faster? What's the belief? And know that it's not me. It's not actually me and my beliefs. It's just a belief. It's the mind.
yeah,
Then I think that the doorway to that opens up a lot quicker for us. And it's simple, which is why people dismiss it because
yeah,
it's such a simple process. But simple doesn't mean necessarily easy because it can be really uncomfortable.
yeah,
Which is why I
yeah,
love bringing on the feelings as well, because I always say our feelings, going back to what we talked about earlier, the feeling is the barometer. So the feeling is if I'm having an intense feeling, that is a sign not to trust my thinking right now. It is off track.
yeah. Mhm.
Now, it doesn't mean ignore, suppress, push down, try and pretend I'm okay when I'm not. It's just going, hey, hey, wake up. There's something here that you need to take a look at. It might not be what you think. Have another
Yeah,
look.
yeah. It might, that person's language has triggered a memory from when you were 3 years old and this other event happened, and it's actually that's the issue. It's not what's
Mhm.
happening right now.
Yes. Yeah, we're carrying the past into this scenario. Yeah. And usually we're safe, like safety is a big value of mine. And so it's very easy for me to collapse. Someone comes in and says something and then it can take me away from feeling safe. And so I just have to go, I have this little mantra of like, I am safe. I am safe.
Yeah,
Right now. I'm safe. Just look again. Where am I? Oh, I'm on a Zoom call with Jen. Am I safe? Absolutely, I'm safe.
yeah,
So the story will tell us we're not. It's just this automatic wiring that we have. So it's just a case of coming back. Can use a little mantra. I am safe. But just I always say blink and look again. Blink and actually look again. Get accurate. What's here? What is really here versus what your story is telling you is here.
yeah. Yeah, I recently realised, because I haven't been in the city centre a lot over the last 5 years because the town was shut down for several years, and going back in and I'm like, oh, it's really noisy in the town. I feel overstimulated and I feel the town makes me feel anxious. There's too much going on. So every time I was going into the town, I was telling myself that's how I felt when I got there. And then it was amplifying that feeling and making it worse. And then I realised that I'm telling myself that I feel anxious when I go into town, and I used to be in town all the time and it didn't bother me. So the last few times I've been in, I've been walking through town going, I am safe and I am calm, I am safe, and just doing like EFT tapping, telling myself I am safe and calm, and it has completely changed my nervous system response to being in the town and being in that busier environment, just because I recognised the story I was telling, the mantra I was repeating every time, the feelings it was then creating, and then how do I reverse that so that that's not how I feel. Like, oh, these people make me feel anxious, but that's only because that's the story I've told myself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. It's
Yeah,
It's so powerful that, you know, I can faint, Jen. This is how wild it is. Like, I can go onto a tube or a train, and then the story that shows up for me is I can't breathe. So if it's super busy and there's lots of people and I feel like I can't breathe. Now, logic doesn't make any sense. Of course, I can breathe. I'm breathing. There's
Yeah.
tons of air. Everyone's breathing, but my body will just pass out. So it,
Mhm.
you know, the fight, flight, freeze, or faint mode, and so mine faints. So I don't really need to worry about it because my body's got my back again. It's just going to get me out of there. I can just go and say to the person next to me, I think I'm going to faint. Will you just catch me on the way down and make sure I don't hit my head? They're like, what? It's a great way of getting to know people. Um, but yeah, so you can worry about the story. Like I could now choose to worry about, oh gosh, I'm going to faint. So then what I do is even before I'm going on a train, I'm living as though I'm already on the train. And
Yeah.
that's how we embed these beliefs even deeper. So the worry about the worry, about the worry, about the fainting. And that's what happens. So I love what you're sharing around, you know, tapping. And what I think is happening, if we're tapping, we're focusing on something else. For me, I go to breath. So if I'm breathing, I'm focusing on the breath. I'm literally diverting the insecure thinking back to something else. And so what's really occurring with all of these different techniques is presence. That's it.
Yeah.
We're going beyond the story into presence. So that's why there's not one technique. People will have different techniques that work better for them, but ultimately, what is occurring is we're coming back to presence.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just trying to get people to go and learn lots of different techniques to see. Because for me, the breath work doesn't work for me. It actually it triggers me
Mhm.
more.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's like, okay, that doesn't work for me. Find another way.
Yes. The mind is like someone said to me, Lisa, the mind is like the best advertising department. It will trick you into something and then it will say it's not me. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny. My mind is such an awesome advertising department. So yeah, find what works for you,
Mm.
and stay open. That's all I would say. Find what works for you and stay open to other things that's there. Different times are going to work potentially too.
Yeah.
Because if we're starting to understand the nature of thought, so I talk as well in the book you will have read, Jen, you're further on along than this right now. The nature of thought is like the clouds in the sky.
Yeah.
So in Glasgow, we have a lot of rainy clouds, but we don't try and climb into the sky and push them along because it's raining. Like
Yeah.
we just know that at some point the rain's going to pass. So we're not focusing on the cloud. We're not stood there trying to move the cloud along. But with our thoughts, we think that there's something really significantly wrong. And
Yeah.
so we're trying to clamber all over the cloud and push
Mm.
it and look at it and examine it and do more with it, which just invites its mates along. So
Yeah.
suddenly now it's thundering as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love to just like plant the seed of, have you ever got curious about the nature of thought? Because if your thought and your story is what's creating the anxiety, which it is, not the things around us, not how busy the town is. Like if my thinking about how busy the town is what's creating that.
Yeah.
And I know that the nature of thought is that's going to pass, even if I do nothing, especially if I do nothing. Like for me, that feels also very freeing to just
Yeah.
know the design of me is that this is going to pass. Even I don't have to get involved at all. And the
Yeah.
more I can relax into that, the quicker it actually passes because the
Yeah.
quicker we come back to presence.
Yeah.
And again, simple, not necessarily um, easy, easy to
Yeah.
remember, easy to allow because it's not a doing, it's an allowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a first stage of all of that is just starting to have awareness, notice where you feel, where you're feeling the feels,
Hmm.
what's the situation. And like for me, my practice comes in being reflective on situations where I've been like, oh, I shouldn't have behaved that way, or oh, I wish I'd behaved differently in that situation, reflecting on it so that, like you said, with that, the person that you had the interaction with, the next time I've got more awareness of if an
Hmm.
interaction similar to this presents, then I can question it
Yeah.
before. I take the reaction.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're using the gift in that previous experience as like, how do I want to be with this differently next time? And for other people who we see are being differently with things, like, what do I want to learn from them? What am I noticing that they're doing or not doing? And that's us halfway up the infinite ladder of learning.
Yeah.
There's always, the ceiling becomes the floor. Because I think as well, like, as we're evolving, we invite ourselves into bigger, juicier things. And so, bigger waves can come along and to surf.
Yeah.
And so again, I think it's important to share, because people can then get back into a funk around, well, I thought I'd moved through all of this. I thought I'd overcome all of this. I wasn't feeling nervous about that, but now I'm feeling nervous again. So something's gone wrong, right? And it's like, no, actually, you've just evolved, because what you're nervous about is a different scenario. Like, you don't get nervous about those other things anymore.
Yeah.
So there's growth there. And sometimes we don't recognize the growth. We just go to, oh, there's something wrong with me again. And I thought that I'd fix this. And I'm saying there's nothing wrong with you. You're working perfectly. If you're experiencing anxiety, that's the human design. If we have an anxious thought, we're going to have an anxious feeling. That's the human design. If you had anxious thoughts and didn't have anxious feelings, the time when you are going to be eaten by a bear, or, the time when you do really need your amygdala to trigger, if your design isn't that you can feel that feeling, you're going to get gobbled by the bear.
Yeah.
So you're working perfectly. There's nothing to fix. There's nothing broken.
Yes.
We're all working as we're meant to be working. If we don't want to get rid of thoughts, then we wouldn't have any kind of creativity or imagination.
We wouldn't be able to teach people this stuff. Like, we
Yeah.
wouldn't support people to do this. Because I remember being on, during COVID, being on a call about trauma, and it was Gabor Mate that was kind of leading it. And he was talking, and he's like, and I've heard him on podcasts, and he's in his 80s now, and he's like, stuff still comes up for me, and I'm like, what? You mean there's no end to this journey? Like, you just keep getting if you're open to it, you just keep getting the lessons. And I think once you've started on this personal development, self-discovery, understanding who you are and how you show up in the world, once you've taken the lid off that, you can't put it back on. You can't go back to being that ignorant, numb, I'm just plowing through life, because you've opened a can of worms.
I think you can try, but again, it's like your body's going to tell you something otherwise, right? It will move you.
Yeah.
I know when I'm like, I'm taking the day off. I think, did we talk about this last time? I was like, I'm taking the day off. I've done too much work recently. I'm taking the day off. I'm not writing my book. I'm not doing anything. So I'd go and sit on the sofa, and then I'd find myself back at my laptop and I'm writing my book. And I'm like, how did I even get here? I don't even remember. I'm supposed to be off. Like, I don't even remember doing that. So we can set all of these like rules and restrictions for ourselves. But if there's something that's meant to be occurring, like, it's really hard to deny it. And so,
Yeah.
there's the small self, the personal mind, which is all our conditioning and all our rules and regulations that we've imposed on ourselves about how things should be. And then there's this like deeper intelligence that, if we can just allow and get out of the way, like, that's going to move us into action. That's the thing that's going to, it's the difference between having to force effort and what I call aligned action. Like, it's still energy. There's still energy being invested into writing a book, but it's not forced struggle, willpower.
Yeah.
It's something just moved me into doing this because I'm aligned with the message that I want to be sharing.
And it needs to come through and out. Because I remember hearing, what's her name? Gabrielle Bernstein talking about the universe has your back, and her journey into that. And she had been sitting in her room crying for days and days and days, and then all of a sudden she was at the laptop, and she refers to it as channeling, and it was just all coming through. And then she wrote this book, and she was like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah.
It was just that was there, that information was there, and it was ready to come out into the world through that channel. So she was
And I
open.
think we all do this all day long. So because I would hear stories like that, and then I would go, I want that for me. And I would make it out to be like this big moment in my life where I want that one, give me that one. Right. But I actually now think that that's moving through us all day long. It's just that most of us are on autopilot and asleep. And how I how I think it tries to show up is in our feelings, right? So like for me, frustrated ambition was definitely a feeling. I wouldn't,
Yeah.
I only recently tagged on ambition. It used to just be frustration. So I could voice
Mhm.
my complaint and I would be feeling really frustrated. But I actually think there was something in me that wasn't, I was holding back, I was playing small, I was somehow like prioritizing protecting myself over actually going for something. And so adding that word ambition, like that's what it is. It's frustrated ambition. And what if I just allowed that to take the reins? Um, so I think it's within us always. And it's not separate for Gabby or me or you. It's not a different thing that we have to wait for our big moment. I think it is a case of getting still and allowing ourselves to hear. And I think it comes across in different ways. Like I never have a download. Some people talk about downloads. And I never
Everybody.
have a download. I have a coach who says like, the message was so clear, I heard it. And I'm like, I want to hear things. I don't hear things. I have to kind of stay with the body is like, there's something in here. What is that? And I just have to stay with myself and keep being really curious and run a lot of experiments, you
Yeah.
know, going right back to the beginning. My flatmate said that, was I willing to act on it?
Mhm.
How it shows up for me.
Yeah.
And there's many an opportunity that people miss because they're not actually listening.
Yeah, because they're distracted, they're scrolling on their phone, they're watching Netflix, they're getting caught up in stories and dramas
Yeah, yeah,
rather than just getting
yeah,
quiet.
yeah. I mean, the amount of times you can ask someone a question, they answer a different question. Or the amount of times I'll say something which is actually like a game-changing insight. Game-changing, game-changing. And they're like, yeah, but blah, 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 and off they go again. And I'm like, come back here. Come back. Did you hear what was just said? You don't need any more. If you pick that up and run with that, game-changing.
Yeah.
Missed it because you were so into whatever was going on in here. And we're all sped up all of the time.
Yeah. I noticed I watched a podcast where I was the guest on it, and I noticed that I did that a couple of times. A question was asked and I started to answer it, but I actually started feeling emotional about it. So I just completely changed the subject and started talking about something else because I was like, I don't want to talk about this. So I then went over and was talking about something completely irrelevant to the whole conversation. Interesting, Jen. Why did you do that? I could also see in my face how stressed I was.
Yeah.
Conversation, like I spoke the whole time without moving my jaw.
Yeah.
I was super uncomfortable in that conversation. I didn't, because it was about my health condition, and I was like, oh, I did not. I was just not ready in that moment to have that conversation as openly and as honest as I thought I was.
Yeah. Which is so cool. I mean, there's so much I love about that for you, Jen, and just being willing to get on the court and play the game. So I'm
Yeah.
going to say yes to being the podcast guest. And then in the playing of the game, I'm now realizing a few things that are still there for me to work through. Most of us live on the sidelines, judging the people on the game,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like, if you're living in the sidelines, all you can use is your imagination to imagine where you are and what you're up to. And you can convince yourself that you're further ahead, or you can convince yourself you're further behind. But being on the court, that's where we
Mm-hmm.
start to really understand ourselves. That's where the truth starts to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's truth with a little t. It's not truth with a capital T. It's not Jen is scared, should be further along. It's like truth with a little t is I've got some feelings about this right now. I'm noticing I don't want to open up about this. Let me take
Mm-hmm.
that and let me do my own work on that.
Yep.
And so you have your next step of like, I see now where my next level of freedom is going to come from.
Yeah.
But on the sidelines, we wouldn't have known that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much I love about just being where you are on the journey is perfect. Right. So
Yeah.
it's coming back to peace around this is my experience. And that's what I experienced in that moment. And it's perfect. It's perfect for me. Now my
Yeah.
mind is going to say that wasn't perfect. What I should have been able to do is this, and this. Right. And it's like, no, but that is perfect. And if I can
Yeah.
allow myself to be with that perfection, then I can just step into my own work around getting free about this stuff in my own
Yeah.
time. And it doesn't have to be on public display.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think I love that you shared that. I think if when people are listening to this, if that's the bit that they take from this whole episode, they'll really be served.
Yeah.
This is how many of us are staying on the sidelines, convincing ourselves of something that we don't want to look at because we have guilt or shame or some feelings about it.
Mhm.
And the courage it takes to be honest with ourselves is the first step to freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
Yeah, that's really an awesome example.
mm.
Thank you.
Um, in your book, there were three of your 13 lessons. There were three that proper jumped out at me. So I would love to dive into them if that's okay. So
Yeah,
this kind of relate the first. They all relate to everything that we've spoken about so far. But the first one was lesson 3, becoming lucky. And you were giving your example of somebody saying, "Oh, you're so lucky for that," and your go-to thought was, "No, I've worked really hard for this." I have experienced, like, I was like, yes, I've experienced that too. And then you're like, but here's where I'm lucky. And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, so I am. So my experience, I've got Crohn's disease and endometriosis, and people have said to me, you're so lucky that you are as well as you are. And I'm like, am I fuck? I do all this work I've made all these changes in my life to be the way that I am. But then when I was reading your book, I'm like, oh no, I am lucky because I'm, one, first of all, lucky that I've even got the knowledge to make those changes. I've got the resources to be able to make those changes. I've got the time to make those changes. Like, there are so many things that, oh yeah, I'm lucky that I've been able to put these things in place for me to be in the situation I'm in. Not lucky that I've got these diagnoses, but lucky that everything else has fallen in place and that I've not been born into a third world country with these conditions where I would probably be dead by now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just,
Yeah, well, I'm glad it resonated, first of all, because I think there's probably a lot of people that would feel the same way. And it's something, it's not a one and done for me. It is something that, I keep coming back to. Whether in this context it was about luck, in another context it will be about something else. But basically what's happening is most of us just want to be seen. We want to be seen, we want to be understood, we want to be heard. And if someone says you're lucky, then what our mind likes to do is create a story that they just dismissed all of this amazing stuff that I have to do, and now they don't see me. They don't get me. They don't understand. So there's something that happens. That's where the resistance comes in, because in a way it's like they've just dismissed everything that actually I'm quite proud of that I've done. My resilience, my tenacity, my positive thinking, my all of that. They don't see any of that. They're just telling me I'm lucky. So it's kind of, I think that is often where the trigger comes from. So it's coming from our story. Actually, we think it's coming from them. They've said it, we're triggered. But what's
yeah.
happening in that gap in between is they've said something, we've just put an internal narrative on it, we've put some meaning on what they've said, and now that is what we're suffering.
Mhm.
They don't see me, I'm suffering that. They don't,
Yeah.
I'm suffering that. They're
Yeah.
dismissed, I'm suffering that. So I think that again, it's a perspective dance that I do of like, where does my freedom live? And if I don't have to be right about this, if I can just come back and see like what hurt about that. They don't see me. Well, can I see me? Can I
Yeah.
give myself that? And I used to have another little mantra. It's enough that I know.
I love that.
It's enough that I know. No one
Again,
else will ever know. It's enough that I know.
social media where everybody has to share every single aspect of every part of their life. Like, we need all this social validation, but we don't.
Yeah,
It is, oh, I love that.
it's enough that I know. And your mind will tell you otherwise many times a day,
Yeah.
right? We'll forget that. So again, just that little connection back to it. It's enough that I know. It's enough that I know.
Yeah.
And then that ownership of like, fuck me, I am really lucky. Oh my God, they're right. They are
Yeah.
so right. Like I have all of these working limbs. I have vision. I have hearing. I have a shelter. I can go to the tap and get as much clean drinking water as I want. I can pick up my phone and I can call somebody and say, I'm lonely, will you speak to me?
Yeah.
Like we are so abundant, like
Yeah.
I am so blessed and lucky. But the mind will want to, when someone says that and we're feeling not heard or seen, the mind will want to argue against it. It will want to look for all of the things where I'm not lucky,
Yeah.
that I can be right about this. And it's innocent, right? It's not like we wake up in the morning and go, right, where can I prove I'm right today, right? We're not doing that. That's not happening. It's just that again, the operating system that we have wants us to feel safe. And guess when we feel safe? It's when we feel like we're right about something. If we've learned that if you get, if you don't do so well at school, you're not going to have a future. If you're wrong, going on the naughty corner, like we're going to learn that we don't want to be wrong.
Yeah.
So we've learned that. So we're going to automatically fight to be right because we've learned being wrong is wrong.
Yeah.
Or dangerous. So all of this stuff is going on underneath the surface for all of us. We're so much more similar than we give ourselves credit for. There's so much. If you're in conflict with someone, I often do this with people if they're talking about someone who's upset them and they're in conflict with someone. Usually we can get to a place where it's like, you're not too dissimilar after all, right?
Yes.
You're fighting for your safety, and guess what? They're fighting for their safety. Both of you just want to feel safe.
Mhm.
There's the common thread. Do you know
Yeah.
what it's like to not feel safe? Yes. Do you want that for them? No. That's their version. It's just a different flavor to yours.
It's that NLP parts thing where you've got the internal conflict
Mhm.
and you through, well, what does this side want? What does that side want? And then the next thing you know, your hands are together, locked together, going, I just want to be happy.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And when we are able to, like, people who shift to the abundant mindset or to the gratitude mindset, and when you look at them and they just seem to have everything, and it looks like everything flows to them so easily, and it's not. It's just because all there, where the attention goes, the
Yeah.
energy goes, the attention flow, whatever that rephrase is.
Yeah. Can't remember it either, but I know what you mean. But it's a conscious, it's when we're unconscious, which a lot of us are 99% of the day, we're on autopilot. So our brain is designed, like we were just saying, to like keep us safe, to protect us, which is going to mean we fight to be right and all the rest of it. So if we can start to come up the ladder of consciousness, if we can start with awareness, what's my mind telling me? Is that true? If we can start to just observe patterns in other people, where's that being reflected in myself? If we can start to grow on awareness, then we can be freer than we currently are. I can't remember what I was going to say about that now, Jen. I feel like my mind was going somewhere, but now it's stopped. Which also happens a lot to me as well. But that is a perfect scenario that I can show. If we're not worried about our thinking, it just disappears.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's another example of the nature of thought. Like I literally, and that was one I wanted to hang on to because I wanted to talk about it. And it disappeared. So it might come back, but that's the nature of thought. That's why we don't need to worry about our thinking so much because it's gonna exit. It's gonna find the exit.
And if it is important, it will circle back round.
It will circle back round if it decides to circle back round.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say it like that is because we can have thoughts on repeat that are not super helpful. And I don't want to make that the frequency of their visit mean that they're more significant and true.
Okay. Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
they might keep circling back around, similar to what you were sharing about when I go into town. It's
Mm-hmm.
circling back around because I fed it a lot.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's more true than a different thought.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a myth I think that we can all, I used to too, of like fall into the trap of like, but this one seems to be coming back, so it must be saying something very accurate. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And collective consciousness as well. Like I always say, like collective ignorance is still ignorance. So we can go around and we can feed our story by finding everyone that's going to agree with us because it feels good. But
Yes.
if we're all off track, then it's still off track thinking. It
Yeah.
doesn't make it true just because more people agree with you.
Yeah. It's
Right.
like flat earth kind of conspiracy, but the flat earthers all believe that, and then they meet more people that believe that, and then they've got these wee Facebook groups or whatever that are, and but all these other people believe this, so therefore it must be true, and you're like, cool.
Yeah, exactly. You are free to be you, and I'm free to be me.
So the next lesson that jumped out at me was lesson 6, identifying second gains. So again, I've got an example of where I have recognised this recently. When I first started in business, I worked with business coaches that would do the what's your ideal day, what's your ideal week. That's how you have to create your business around what you want your ideal day and week to look like. And I would have my ideal day as waking up without the need of an alarm, being next to a partner that loves and respects me, choosing the work that I do. And then the week was working 3 days a week, and every 7 or 8 weeks having a week off. And that's what my ideal one. Still got the notepads where that's been written down, but I never created that life for myself. I always was working towards being able to do that. So I was working 7 days a week, taking classes here, there, and everywhere just to bring in enough money so that one day I could live this life. And then when I got diagnosed with Crohn's, I then couldn't work 7 days a week and do all these classes all over. So now my days are, I work 3 days a week. Every 8 weeks I have a week off. I've only recently have stopped setting an alarm because I found that the time I was setting my alarm for it was taking me ages to get up and going because I was still too tired. So I don't have an alarm set. I wake up when I wake up, and I choose the work that I do. And I'm like, right, so I had to get sick to give myself permission to have my ideal day in life. How do I now? Because I was talking to a coach about this the other day because she does like body mind healing work. And I was like, I realised that part of me wants to keep my illness so that I don't go back to how I used to behave and go back to working 7 days a week because I'm well enough to. And like, how do I then not have that secondary gain and still allow myself to live the life that I want to live?
Yeah, it's such a cool exploration that you're in. And I think that's a good foundation for you to build on. So I'm recognizing that there's a part of me that wants to keep this illness because without it, I'm going to work 7 days a week. That's story.
Yeah.
That's past conditioning. That's beliefs around income, probably, right? Like I have to work 7 days if I'm going to be earning as much money as I want to be earning. So you want to dig underneath, like, why is it that I feel like I would need to work 7 days a week? Maybe there's something about I wouldn't be able to fit all my clients in 3 or 4 days and I don't want to let them down. I don't know. Like you just want to go having a little mind for why would I feel I would have to work 7 days a week? If I work 3 days a week, what am I worried about? So I had another client who she's a contractor and she would do some consultancy work. And if she didn't have something in her calendar and work asked her to do something, she would say yes. And I would say, what do you want to do it? And she'd go, no. And I said, why are you saying yes for?
Totally.
Like, because I haven't got anything in my calendar, Lisa. And I was like, where did you learn that you need to have something in your calendar? Would you know what you have in your calendar? You have a booking called space, right? Turn it into a booking. I'm not available. What are you doing? Rest. What are you doing? Space. What are you doing? I'm not at liberty to discuss that, right? You don't have to explain or justify anything. So, but again, it all comes back to this conditioning. What did we learn about what gets results? Work hard, work more, work faster, right? What did we learn about selfish people? They're not doing anything. They're just over there resting. I'm working hard. I'm the one that gets all the glory and the credit for working hard. And I'm slagging off these people over here for not doing anything. So of course, if I have space in my calendar and someone asks me to do something, I have been conditioned that that is the way to respond. So we gotta flip up how we start to see our calendar and our diary. So that I love that for you. That's gonna be your homework. Did you know you're gonna get homework from this? This is why I'm not gonna get invited again. But yeah, that could be your homework.
I'm like, I have to go listen to all of this because there's notes I need to write down.
That's the beauty of recording. And again, it's like You know, just trusting that we're hearing whatever we need to hear right now, and then allow ourselves to be guided. Like, what's that I wanted to go back and have another listen to? Yeah, but no, I'm excited. I'd love to hear what comes of your exploration as well, if you're open to sharing.
Yeah, I will definitely be sharing. Like, look what I have worked out. Because it's like when I look at myself and my brother, we are polar opposites to each other. He will quite happily not do anything. Like, he's got a job and he's quite content and he's not interested in progressing and he's not interested in achieving and doing stuff. Like during lockdown, he literally sat and watched TV and played computer games for 18 months because he was on furlough. And I was like, but do you not want to learn something? Do you not want to do a course? Do you not want to do this? And he was like, no.
Yeah.
How are you like going to teach me how to be like that? And he went, kind of teach nature, Jen.
Well, I mean, he's got a point, right? Of like, at our core, like, what is before we learned that busy was better, that life in the fast lane equals more success, like, who were we? How did we experience life as a kid? There was more playfulness, there was more relaxedness, there was less seriousness. And so that's still all within us. You know, that
Yeah,
hasn't really gone anywhere. True nature hasn't gone anywhere. It's always there. It's just covered up by all of our beliefs and funky things that we tell ourselves. Um, and I love that you're interested in that. The very fact that you're even asking is pointing to like, I want a little more of this. So if I
yeah,
make that my devotion to like, let me experiment for the next 30 days with what's it like to create more spaciousness. What's it like to feel into the discomfort of saying no to something even without anything else in my calendar? And then I also love to just really stretch all of my beliefs around, you know, when I grew up, it was a case of you can have a little bit of time on the video game, but then, you know, you need to do your homework and you need to do this and you need to do that. So if you wanted to play on the computer, it was restricted. And
yeah,
now, who are all the people who are advancing well in their careers? Like the gaming world, the tech world, you know, like how do we know that that's actually not an education?
yeah.
How do we know? We've just been brought up in an educational system that is
Mhm.
a little bit out of date, I think, now. And it might not actually be the thing that's going to serve the kids going through it these days.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I loved to just question like that is one way of looking at things. My map of the world is that sitting around and playing video games equals no ambition.
Mhm.
One way of looking at it. And I can't know for sure. I can't know for sure. He's pretty ambitious about that computer game.
Yeah, and he's very relaxed and he has no health issues. He's
Right.
no fillings, doesn't need glasses, has no health issues at all. And I'm like, I'm the one who's trying to be fit and healthy and this and that and achieve, and he seems to be way further ahead and he's younger than me. And I'm like, I've got something wrong here.
Yeah, and so being able to look and go, what can I learn from this? What's in this for me? Why is this guy like showing up for me? What's he here to teach me? And it's not polarity. It's not like I've got to go from being in the fast lane to going in the like ultra slow lane, right? We have this whole range that we can play in. So it might be, I'm going to take 5% of what he's doing and
Yeah,
try that out and see how that
yeah,
works for me. So I'm not saying like I'm going to go from 7 days a week to no days a week
yeah,
because my body probably wouldn't like that. I'm imagining my work. I love what I do. And if someone
yeah,
said to me, I only work 1 day a week, I'd be like, I don't think I want to do that. Like, no,
yeah,
I want to work how much I work.
yeah,
So tuning into like in this stage of my life, in this season of my life, what would I love to create and how do I want to honor that commitment? But yeah, the belief work underneath, and then looking at people who challenge your beliefs
yeah,
and allowing yourself to be challenged by it and invited into it, I think is a really fun game to explore.
yeah.
Mhm.
And the last lesson, which kind of feeds into this as well, was lesson 13, the 6-year-old in the boardroom. And the thing that had come up for me, and it's kind of similar to what we were talking about how the school system has conditioned us. There was somebody who I follow in my industry who was a millionaire by the time they were 30. And my first thought was, well, that's okay for you because you were really academic and went to uni straight from school, did blah, blah, blah. I didn't get to uni till I was 30 because I didn't do well in school and that wasn't right for me. So therefore I am several years behind you
Mhm.
in the journey. And then I was like, where did that story come from? And all of it for me was being at school, being told if you're not good at school, you will not achieve anything in life. So therefore, I'm not allowing myself to achieve because I didn't do well in school, even though I left school 30 years ago. It's like, interesting. This is an interesting story that you're telling yourself here, Jen. What's that all about?
And that's so key. If you have such a beautiful willingness, Jen, to really look and see like what's here. What's the thing that is unconscious to most of us? Like what is here that's driving this show? And Gay Hendricks calls it a upper limit, I think it's just an upper limit. Like he might have different terminology for it. But he writes about in the book The Big Leap. It's like we've all got these ceilings. And he shares a story of somebody who, let's say they had an income cap, right? So it's like I always make this much, but I can't seem to break beyond there. And when they dug into it, I think it was somebody in their family had never made more than that, and so they couldn't go ahead of it because they would then be making more than their parents, and they didn't want to offend or upset their parents.
Yeah.
So it's completely unconscious, but it is all of this stuff that we've learned. I've learned that I'm not going to do well because I didn't do well at school. And even if I can't articulate that, it's still in there. You know, if I'm noticing, I always say, go to your results. Like, what are the results showing us? You have the perfect system for the results that you're getting.
Yeah.
So if you're getting XYZ results of like and the results show I'm not at the level of success that I want to be at, then you've got the perfect system for those level of results. And so we want to unlock what's the thinking that's limiting the results that you're seeing, because that's what drives everything. So yeah, that's one idea of I didn't do well at school, so therefore I can only have this. So what's a different way? Like, where do I see that that's not so accurate anymore?
Yeah. And most of the billionaires in the world didn't do well at school. Most of them are dyslexic. Most of them dropped out.
Yeah.
They just another way around because the school system was actually holding them back.
Yes. So then we look, and it has to shift a little from, it might start off as an intellectual understanding of like, you know, I can get that Simon Squibb's doing this and this guy's doing this and this guy's doing this. And I can get that on an intellectual level, you know, that makes sense. But I still don't feel it hasn't gone into me yet, fully embodied that. So I'm still operating from, but
Yeah,
like I
but yeah.
understand that, but I didn't do well at school. So we want to just keep pointing the feet in that direction and traveling into it and like, let me have another look. Let me figure out about Simon Squibb. What was his background? And then I start to notice and like, oh man, he was made homeless at 15. Oh man, he started out in a gardening business. Oh man, he didn't even do the gardening. He got other people to do the gardening for him. Oh wait, he failed at that business. Oh, then what did he do? So like I'm just diverting my attention off of my old story onto like possibility and learning and seeing like, if I want to play at the next level, let me have a look at these people playing at the next level. How do they see the world? How don't they see the world? What's missing? You know,
Yeah.
often it's overthinking, perfectionism, procrastinating. It's like, fuck me, he had an idea in this room that we were just in, and 2 hours later he's on a call and he's just implemented it. Like that's some fast action.
Yeah.
And the rest of us are going, well, let me just weigh up the pros and cons and who would be the right person to do this. And let me just get my timeline out and see if it's going to, you know, if it's going to fit in or if it's going to put too much pressure on. So we have to, if we want another level, we have to create different systems internally and externally to play at different levels. But yeah, that little 6-year-old in the director's chair of our lives. But often we just need to give them some reassurance because they have learned their strategies. When they were a kid, they learned strategies to stay safe or to receive love, right? And these are ticket things for a little kid, right? I learned to not upset mum by not asking for what I need. So
Yeah.
I'm now going to live my life not asking, because that causes a lot of pain for other people
Mhm.
or a lot of stress for other people. And I know because I saw it as a kid,
Yeah.
right? And then we take that on as big T truth. And then
Yeah.
we're in the fucking boardroom and we're acting like the 6-year-old. I can't ask for what I want because big T truth is it's going to really hurt a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we won't be conscious of that. So if anyone's
Mhm.
listening going, no, I don't do that, I promise that that will be at play.
Mhm.
Not necessarily that exact example, but this is what is at play in all of us.
And you can see it even with some politicians and people. You're like, you're just a child craving attention from the behaviour that you're doing. Like people that are in the media, it's like you're being confrontational or you're being brash or whatever it is because you're trying to get, and you can see that in
Mm.
people. So why would you not? Why would you think that you're not?
Yeah, exactly. And you just, again, it's like, gosh, there's such an innocence to that. Like, I didn't have a lot of resources as a 6-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So it's like I did the best I could at the time with the resources that I had. And I created these winning strategies to get
Yeah.
by, to get attention, to get love, to feel secure. And it's just time to revamp and refresh the strategies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have loved this conversation. Is there anything else that you want to chat about before we wrap it up?
Gosh, I feel like I could talk to you like for a week. Like
Me too.
but no, do you know, I also feel like there is that hunger in me of I'm so greedy when it comes to learning and teaching, and so I could go on and on, but I also do see the value of stopping when it's time to stop, and just having what's occurred in this space today is perfect.
Yeah.
And people can go and soak it up and re-listen to it and absorb it and try it on and experiment with their different belief systems. Um, and yeah, there's plenty of time, Jen, so we can always have, more conversations. I'm always down for that. Yeah. But I've loved it. Thank you so much. I've loved that I hadn't realized that you'd read as much of the book that you've read as well. It's so interesting to me to hear like which of the different lessons are resonating with different people. And I really did write it in the hope of, I just want this to make a difference. That's it. I
Yeah.
just want it to actually impact on people because there's so much brilliance, there's so much human potential, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I wanted for it. So it's really rewarding to me to hear that it's having an impact.
I think if you go back and listen to it or watch it or fuck's sake, get the words right, read it again in a different mindset, you would pick different things out of it. It's
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, that really resonates with me this time, and then you maybe learn that lesson, and then the next time you read
Yeah,
something, you go, oh, actually, because like I've read some books a few times, and every time I read it, I'm like, I've definitely read this book before, but it's not
yeah,
ringing any bells. I'm picking up totally different things from it.
yeah.
Yeah,
You can now. I wanted to write it so that you could almost, because the way I read books, I just open up a page and then read that little bit. And then I
okay.
just see like what's in that bit for me. And then if I decide my personal mind gets in the way and I go, no, that I didn't like that bit, then I'll go to another bit and I'll read a different bit. But I
Mhm.
wanted to write a book that could basically be picked up and
Yeah,
read. So I would definitely recommend read the whole thing from cover to cover first time round, and then just go and dip in and out and see, what's in there. What do I need to hear today? What do I need to read today? Um, and yeah, I think the more uh, this is a weird way of saying it, but the better we get at listening, the more we learn and the more we evolve.
yeah,
Because well, you just said it perfectly. Like I'll read something the first time and it won't go in, and then my consciousness will have changed. And so
yeah,
when I read it another time, it lands deeper, or I notice it where I didn't notice it the first time. And I
yeah,
think we all go through life with these different curriculums. So, it's 2025. We're living our curriculums right now, whether it's around health or love or finance or work, whatever your curriculum is. In 2026, it might be different.
yeah.
In 2020, tomorrow, it might be different.
Mhm.
So these lessons and the principles in the book can really be applied to every single facet of life. in every single scenario that you're kind of bumping into. And so I might read this and I might have relationships on my mind. And so my mind is automatically going, how can I apply this here? But next
Yeah.
year I might read it and I might have something else on my mind. And so I'll be going, how can I apply this here?
Yeah.
So it's like it's a never ending tool in a never ending curriculum.
It's very good and very well written, and it's an easy read, and there's lots of bits that you go, ooh.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what's the best way for people to follow you? Do you work with people, and like how else do you work with people?
So I have some experiences at the moment that I'm running in Glasgow. So depending on when people are listening to this, my next experience is November 2025, called the Truly You Experience. I've got lots of things in the pipeline, and people can work with me one-on-one currently, at the moment anyway. That might change next year, I'm not sure yet. But yeah, lisahoppercoaching.com is my website. I'm on all the socials, but if you head to the website, that's probably the best way of getting connected. And I'll also share with you the link if you want to give away to your listeners the link to Truly You, like, and they can have a digital copy of the book. So yeah.
So we can put that into the show notes. So thank you so much for being here. If you have been listening to this and loved it, please do share it. If you don't already subscribe or follow or any of that stuff on whichever platform you're listening to, please make sure that you do. If somebody else came to mind when you were listening to this and think, oh, they really need to hear that, share this with them, because that is when people share podcasts with me and go, oh, I thought of you when I was listening to this. It makes you feel special, first of all, because somebody else is thinking about you, but then also it's really valuable information because it's relevant to you, because there are so many podcasts out there that how do you choose which ones to listen to? You could be there for the rest of all your lives listening to podcasts. So thank you very much for being here, Lisa.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I am definitely sharing, and your other episodes as well. There's lots to tuck into. But yeah, thanks for having me. It's a real honor.
My pleasure. Thank you.